A pensioner stabbed to death by burglars.
My brother rung up and he goes, "Dad's dead." You hear them words just every day.
A young father hit by a stray bullet.
This innocent man suffered until he took his last breaths because somebody took a gun and shot him.
And the one who got away. The hunt for Hatton Garden's red-haired thief. Live for the next hour, this is Crimewatch. Good evening and welcome to Crimewatch. We're live for the next 60 minutes with crime investigations, news and appeals. The flying squad will be here with the latest on Basel and Hatton Garden. But first, a brief look at what else we have for you tonight.
We've a fresh collection of wanted faces. The lines are open, so get dialing if you know where they are. Plus, some shocking CCTV coming up, including the moment a man was ambushed for his scooter.
It was happening so quickly that I couldn't actually react, and then the next thing, I must have lost consciousness.
And also tonight, we need your help to identify a murder victim discovered tied up in a sleeping bag in Ireland. Police are convinced he's British, but who is he?
David Brickwood was a 74-year-old grandfather from Abington in Northamptonshire with a large, loving family. So why, in September, was he murdered in his own home? Tonight we can reveal new CCTV which may hold the answers to this horrific murder. But first, we hear from David's sons about what happened to their dad.
Every day it kicks you at some point.
The fear that he must have had. What a horrible, horrible way to go.
Lindsay Avenue was his little castle, and seeing forensic people, tape all round it, police everywhere, people laying flowers. You can't make sense of any of it.
David Brickwood had lived in the same house on Lindsay Avenue in Abington for 45 years. He ran a scrap metal business from the back garden of his property.
That was just his life. He was brought up to go out there collecting metals, and that's all he knew.
He loved the simple things in life. Didn't go on holiday, didn't drink, didn't smoke. He lived for work, and that's how he was.
Hard-working, funny, helpful. He was just a total gentleman to everybody. People like that, they just ain't around anymore.
He was very content within himself. The scrap was his hobby.
He always made everyone welcome that you see around the street. That's what he was known for, always standing there at the wall with a cup of tea in his hand, smiling and talking to everyone.
Hi, Dave, you okay?
He could never do enough for people, and he was always helping people. Yeah, he's really a lovely man. I'm proud to say he was my father.
Friday, the 25th of September, was like any other for David. At around 7:30 p.m, he returned home from the local shops, having gone out to buy some dinner. At 8:15, David's grandson, who'd been staying at the house, went out for the night.
See you later, Pat.
Yeah.
After watching television for several hours, David locked up and headed to bed. David had been stabbed 5 times. He received injuries to his leg, hands and head.
Police! Police!
When police arrived, his condition had deteriorated and he suffered a heart attack.
My brother rung up and he goes, "Dad's dead." And that, you know, that, like, Dad's dead every day. You hear them words just every day.
I had to go and tell my mum and then tell my children. It's just heartbreaking. We got a life sentence. We did. But like Dad, we was innocent. We were just normal people getting on with our lives. I see my dad on a Friday. He's gone on a Saturday.
Well, my world fell apart, I was destroyed. Seeing my dad laying there, seeing the look on his face, it's just so hard to believe that someone could do this. You know, as a non-confrontational man. Everybody is stuck from the murder of my father. Until these people get caught, we cannot rebuild our lives. We are just stuck. We can't move forward. All everybody wants, just justice for my dad.
Well, we're joined now by DCI Mick Graham, who is the lead detective on this case. Such a shocking crime, and you're still not entirely sure what the motive was.
No, we're not entirely sure. It's an unnecessary level of force and violence that we used against David. We're not sure what was taken, if anything, but we do know that he used to keep significant sums of money, mainly £20 and £50 notes of old denominations, old-style notes, so they should be noticeable. David was stabbed, as you've seen from the video, 5 times. The attackers would have been bloodstained, so did anybody see anything that night? Any bloodstained clothing, anybody acting suspiciously? I do think someone locally knows what's happened, and I'd appeal to them to come forward tonight. And you're particularly interested in 2 cars. We've got images of the sort of cars, because you've caught them on CCTV. Yes, that's correct. These are the style of cars that we're looking at. And these are the cars going along the road, not the parked ones? Yes, the cars moving along. We've got 2 Ford Focus cars, one a light-coloured car and one a dark-coloured, different modelled car, different series. They're both travelling in convoy, as you can see. They both turn around in the locality of Lindsay Avenue, go back towards David's address. I think they're involved. Those vehicles are travelling together, and I'd like to identify who's driving those cars. And there were also people walking past in the area at that time that you would also like to hear from? Yes, there's a couple of people arguing outside David's house about 11:45. Also, as you can see from this video, CCTV, there's a couple walking along towards David's house. That's a male and a female, we believe, so we'd ask those people to come forward. They may have witnessed something. And similarly, we've got 2 people walking away, 2 males at midnight. Again, I'd ask those people to come forward. They may well have some information that could assist the inquiry. So this is the end of September last year, and there is a reward. Yes, Crime Stoppers are offering a £10,000 reward for the arrest and conviction of the persons responsible. Well, let's hope you get some information tonight. Thank you. Whoever did this is violent and dangerous, and they need to be caught. If you can help in any way, please call now on our usual number, 0500 600 600. Detectives are standing by for your calls.
A roundup of crime news now, and with less than a week until Valentine's Day, plenty of people will be looking for love online. But according to the latest figures, the number of people being raped on a first date with someone they've met through dating apps or website has increased sixfold in 5 years. The National Crime Agency says there were 184 rape allegations in the UK in 2014, up from 33 in 2009. The agency believes the number is underreported and is encouraging victims to come forward. So for advice on how to date safely, do visit getsafeonline.org. Two friends who rented out their home on the website Airbnb say they returned to find their rare artwork stolen and flat completely trashed. Jack Clark and Dominic Jones say they arrived back at their home in Islington in London to find condoms, laughing gas canisters and cannabis joints strewn throughout, while chewing gum and food had been trodden into the carpet. Dominic's treasured print by the artist Banksy, thought to be worth around £8,000, was also taken.
I went upstairs and realised that this Banksy print was missing, and I think then, you know, obviously was immediately just completely gutted, realised that it had been taken. Just thinking that someone had been in the flat, treating it with such little respect, could have been, you know, doing anything in your, you know, in your personal space, just felt really, it's just a horrible feeling.
Well, Airbnb say they have zero tolerance for this type of behaviour and are assisting police with their investigation. Now, a man who stole a dumper truck and left a 37-mile trail of destruction during a police chase across 2 counties has been jailed. The 2-hour low-speed pursuit last July started in Norwich, ending up in Suffolk. 40-year-old Nicholas Churchill from Brandon damaged several vehicles, including police cars, causing an estimated £28,000 worth of damage. The pursuit took place on major roads as well as pedestrianised area. Churchill was jailed on Friday for 14 months after admitting dangerous driving whilst unfit through drugs. He said he took the truck from his employer because he was angry about the air conditioning in his cab, saying it was far too hot to work.
Father of 2, Marvin Cousin, had been enjoying a night out when he was hit by a stray bullet outside a nightclub in 2002. He survived, but with serious injuries, and spent the next 13 years confined to a hospital bed, unable to communicate. Now, for the first time, Crimewatch reconstructs the tragic events of that night in the hope that new witnesses will come forward.
13 years in pain, in suffering. Part of you would think Marvin's still in there.
Call the ambulance, man!
Marvin's my big brother. Very, very much there for us as a family. He was kind of one of those people that you just gravitate towards.
If Marvin meets you today, you are his friend for life. He has no enemy.
Back in 2002, 26-year-old father of 2, Marvin Cousin, was enjoying life in London. In the early hours of Sunday, May the 12th, he arrived at the Lime Bar in Shoreditch with friends. The bar was packed.
He knew how to have a good time. He would dance with his friends and everybody would kind of like look and stare and see what Marvin's doing. He danced really well, so yes, if he'd started dancing, he would get a crowd around him.
Just after 3 a.m, the partying came to a dramatic end.
There's a shot fired, which has caused people to panic, leave the club and spill out onto the street.
Nobody was injured by the gunshot, but about 300 people were left standing outside.
In particular, everyone's eyes will have gone to this red or burgundy Ford Fiesta.
One of Marvin's friends stood in the road, blocking the car.
Think of it. Bruv, no, Mark, mate, no, you're with me, right? Call an ambulance, innit? So call an ambulance! Mark, man, call the ambulance, man! Mark! Talk, say something, man.
The gunshot punctured his heart, ricocheted off his ribs, we were told, without the oxygen for approximately 20 minutes or half an hour. So that's what caused his brain injury. Initially, after the shooting, the doctors believed that his brain was completely dead, but he surprised them as being Marvin. He started breathing unsupported, so they changed diagnosis to say, you know, he's not completely brain dead.
Marvin was alive, but completely unable to communicate.
When you'd go and see him, he'd like be in the bed. He would just be there, lying there. You'd believe that like he could hear you when you made a joke. So part of you would think, yeah, there's like Marvin still in there, but he's just trapped and can't really say anything. He's just trapped. You could hear your voice and he'd respond to it in a way that you'd get a grin or a smile. The serious expressions that he had, you know, you would tease him, you'd say to him, you know, come on, Marvin, it's not that bad, and, you know, he might grin.
For 13 long years, Marvin was trapped in this condition. His family visited every single day. Sometimes he would be smiling, but he was often in agony.
At times when you go there, you see Marvin. You yourself, you want to cry.
You know he's in pain, and seeing that, it's breaking your heart.
Early last year, Marvin's health began to deteriorate. On a visit in August, the family became alarmed by his condition.
He started breathing irregularly. At the time, I didn't know what was happening. I just saw something I hadn't seen before with the struggles to take breaths. So I started to film.
Marvin passed away a short time after that video was taken.
I feel people need to see that this man, this innocent man, completely innocent, suffered in this way until he took his last breaths because somebody took a gun and shot him.
Although it happened 13 years after he was shot, Marvin's death came as a direct result of his gunshot injuries. Police are now dealing with a murder investigation. They hope the passage of time will encourage witnesses to finally come forward.
Certainly there's around 300 people, and of those 300 people, some people were unwilling to give statements at the time. We understand that they may have been frightened or they may have had different loyalties, and some people may think that, you know, they won't remember. But clearly, if you were in a club that night, one, if shots were fired, you would remember, because it's a very rare occurrence. And most importantly, if you've come outside and then someone's been murdered, then you will remember it. It will be crystal clear.
We've had to live, Marvin had to live as a result of the gunshot wound for 13 years, 2 months, 27 days. It was registered in my head, in pain, in suffering.
I want them caught. I want to see them, let them speak to me. Why? I want justice.
This person didn't die of own natural causes. This person died as a result of your gunshot to his heart. His last breaths, as you see in the video, was down to you because you pulled the trigger.
DCI Noel McHugh is here. An innocent man, wrong place, wrong time, but it is 13 years ago. Do you really think somebody will remember something that could help you?
Yes, I do. 13 years ago, but people will recall that shot inside the club. Some 300 people then spilled out onto the street. Many of them will have witnessed what happened to Marvin, the shooting. They will have heard rumours at the time and subsequently with his death in August. So those people, I want them to make that call this evening to us.
And it is the Ford Fiesta, the car in the street, that is crucial for you.
Yeah, the Ford Fiesta seems central to our investigation. It's possibly a T registration, red or burgundy. Marvin's friend went over to the car. He was struck by it. There was an altercation, and then the shot was fired either from inside the car or nearby. So we need to trace that car and the occupants. There's possibly 2 black males in it. And
you want people to call in tonight. You can announce as well tonight that you are now offering a substantial reward.
Yeah, we announced tonight a £40,000 reward for information leading to the arrest and prosecution of the persons responsible for Marvin's murder. Now, at the time, I understand that people may have had loyalties to other people, they may have been afraid, or they may have made that assumption that someone else will make that call. Please have a look at the damage that's been done to Marvin's family and make the call this evening.
DCI Noel McHugh, thank you. And it is a dreadful case, but with your help, it can finally be solved. If there's something you know which could help Marvin's family get justice, please call the detectives here in the studio on 0500 600 600, or if you prefer, you can call Crime Stoppers anonymously. They're on 0800 555 111. Right, still to come tonight. Police from Ireland ask for your help to identify a British busker murdered and buried in a back garden.
But we've got wanted faces first, starting with 34-year-old Stephen Bennett. He was found guilty of drug dealing in December, but didn't return to court for sentencing and is now on the run. He's known to travel around the northwest of England and has family in Liverpool. Next is Mian Farouk Nadeem. The 37-year-old was arrested in connection with the rape of a woman in Manchester. He was released on bail but has failed to return for further questioning. Originally from Pakistan, he has links across Greater Manchester. Number 3 tonight is Nisa Ul-Haq. She was found guilty of people trafficking after bringing at least 10 migrant families into the UK. She charged each family £12,000 and then threatened them if they wouldn't pay what she called taxes of up to £300 a week. Ul-Haq went on the run last month and was sentenced in her absence to 5.5 years in jail. She has contacts across West Yorkshire and in Stoke-on-Trent. Finally for now is David Rotherham, although he also calls himself Barry. Detectives in Merseyside want to question him after 2 security guards were robbed as they filled a bank's cash machine. Rotherham was 33 last month and has LFC tattooed on his left arm. He's described as dangerous, so if you know where he is, just dial 999. If you know where any of tonight's other faces might be, please do get in touch using the numbers on screen. We'll go through the rest of the lineup a little later. A roundup of crimes caught on camera now, starting this month with a violent robbery in London. A Wednesday evening in Southwark, and a man was chatting with his friend in the street.
It was a really nice sunny day. It was still daylight at that time.
As they talked, 2 men on push bikes, a man in a dark hoodie, and 2 men on a moped all went past in quick succession. They all then appeared to hang around at the end of the street, just off camera. Minutes later, as Dirk started up his scooter, they struck.
It was happening so quickly that I couldn't actually react, and then the next thing, they must have thrown me onto the floor and I must have lost consciousness.
You can see one thug kick Dirk in the head. Another stamped on him. The gang then left Dirk lying helpless on the pavement as they scarpered with his bike.
It was horrific, really. You feel numb and dazed. The first few weeks, I always had in the back of my mind that this happened, and I was nervous.
Do you know who these callous moped muggers are? Names, please. Also in tonight's CCTV, a shop in Brixton in South London in October, and these men are in a hurry. One is armed with what looks like a pellet gun. He immediately starts to fire it at the terrified shopkeeper. Taking aim, he shoots him again in the head and face. As the victim cowers, the other robber grabs the till, dragging it out of the store. Surgeons removed several pellets from the shopkeeper's face, but he still has one lodged behind his eye. Who are these hooded thugs? Another shop, this time in Liverpool in January. And as the employee is closing up, a man follows him inside. Armed with a knife, he demands cash from the till. He takes handful after handful and stuffs it into his pockets. But whoops, he's looked straight up at the camera. He then demands the cigarettes from the display, all the time holding the knife to the petrified worker's throat. He then marches the assistant to a back room where, out of sight of the cameras, the worker is forced to open a safe. Do you recognize this knife-wielding robber? You know what to do. A bookies in Wolverhampton one evening last September. A man in a black coat tries to cash in his winnings, but another punter wearing a blue polo shirt wants him to step outside. The man ignores him, and the disgruntled gambler walks off. But he returns seconds later and launches a sickening punch at the unsuspecting victim. The unprovoked attack caused extensive damage to his eye, which needed surgery. Stack the odds against this sore loser and name him tonight. This private CCTV is from a house in central London, but these men don't live here. The camera picks them up in the homeowner's bedroom, and they're clearly looking for something. They rifle through drawers and search cupboards. Totally unaware, they're being caught on camera. 47 watches, including these, were later found to be missing. They were worth an estimated £500,000. Let's call time on these two watch thieves. Get in touch if you know who they are. You can take another look at all of tonight's faces and CCTV on the website. Call and text the numbers on screen if you can help.
In 2002, a gruesome discovery was made in a garden in Galway in Ireland. The owner of a bungalow was carrying out building work when he uncovered human remains. The body had been wrapped in a sleeping bag and left in a shallow grave. A post-mortem was carried out, but the remains have never been formally identified. And 14 years on, Irish detectives believe someone in the UK could hold the key to identifying who he was. Well, Detective Inspector Michael Coppinger joins me now. Talk us through the initial investigation all these years ago.
Yes, Sophie, in 2002, a local developer had purchased a property in Upper Salt Hill, and while he was cleaning out the rear garden using a mechanical digger, he discovered a shallow grave which contained skeleton remains. And you think the body had been there for a couple of years. How had he been killed? Yes, we believe that he had been killed and concealed in a sleeping bag which was tied with an nylon rope. A follow-up post-mortem examination revealed that he had died as a result of blunt force trauma to his skull. And there were specific items that were with him that you think people could help identify? Yeah, that's correct, Sophie. A number of items were found when the sleeping bag and the shallow grave was excavated, including these rings and some hair ties. In particular, these Norton Ridge boots, they were still in the sleeping bag with the skeleton remains. You think the man was called Dave. What more do you know about him? Yes, we believe that he was known to some people who frequented the squat, which was at the front of this area where he was found, and these people believe that he was Dave. He was also referred to as Dave Rawson, but we believe that he may be known in the UK by some other name.
And he had links to specific parts of England.
Yes, again, we believe that he may have links to Tunbridge Wells and Cornwall area. While in Galway, he busked on the streets and he made his living basically by busking.
But what you would really like tonight is to have a positive identification, someone to ring in and tell you who he is. And also, you want to find the person who killed him.
That's correct, Sophie. Our appeal tonight is we would like somebody to positively identify the person who is known to as Dave. We believe that he's from the UK, and we would also appeal to anybody who has information in relation to how Dave met this violent death to call the programme tonight, please.
Thank you. Well,
Thank
Michael
you, Sophie.
and his colleagues are standing by for your call. If you think you can help, please do get in touch using the numbers on the screen.
Well, let's just catch up now on new developments since we've been on air. DCI Mick Graham, what have you got? What's the latest on the David Brickwood murder?
Yeah, we've had some interesting calls coming in, but I would appeal to people again to look at the CCTV around the two Ford Focus motor vehicles and give us some more information about who was driving those cars.
The CCTV is absolutely crucial.
It's crucial for me to identify who was driving those cars, who was in them, and what they were doing there on the night. So I'd appeal to those people to come forward to help us eliminate them from our inquiries.
Thank you. Please keep those calls coming.
Thank you.
So, still to come tonight, we have the inside story of how the flying squad cracked the UK's biggest ever burglary.
They would see themselves at the top end of criminality. The flying squad is at the top end of police investigation.
More wanted faces first, starting with Alexander Iguodalo. He failed to turn up in court to answer fraud and money laundering charges after a major international company was conned into paying £42,000 for a fake invoice. Originally from Nigeria, the 36-year-old has links to Greater Manchester and York. Police think he may be working as a security guard. Number 6 tonight is 32-year-old Miles Phillips. He's wanted for questioning by police in Bristol in relation to drug dealing offences. Phillips has a scar on his left finger and speaks with a West Country accent. He's known to be violent, so don't approach, just dial 999 if you know where he is. Next up is Stephen Healy, although you may know him as Michael Gaywood. He was jailed for 4 years for burglary in 2012 and released early on licence, but he's failed to stick to the terms of his release and is now wanted back in prison. Healy is 39 and has links to Ireland, South London and Kent. Finally tonight is Mark Edward Fitton, although he often uses the nickname Dinky. Detectives want to question him in connection with almost 100 burglaries across Cheshire and Lancashire. Fitton was 45 last week and has tattoos of a flower with the names Lewis Mark on the right arm, along with 2 dice and a crest. He has family and friends in Oldham and over in Ireland and is also known to be violent, so just dial 999 if you spot him. If you know where any of the other faces are, then get in touch using the numbers on screen, and of course, they're all on the Crimewatch website.
Last month, 3 more members of the Hatton Garden gang were found guilty of their roles in the record-breaking heist. But one, Basil, is still on the run. We'll speak to the head of the flying squad, Detective Superintendent Craig Turner, about the latest in their hunt for Basil shortly. But first, the inside story of how the rest of the gang were caught.
It's the biggest burglary in British history.
They were career criminals. This was one last hurrah for them to undertake.
£14 million worth of jewellery, gemstones and gold, stolen from the heart of the UK diamond industry.
You can compare it with old boxers, you know, they retire, but they get an offer to go back in the ring one more time. And this was a big prize.
They would see themselves at the top end of criminality. The flying squad is at the top end of police investigation.
On Tuesday, the 7th of April, following the Easter weekend, security guards at the Hatton Garden Safe Deposit Company arrived for work. What they discovered would trigger a major investigation by the elite flying squad.
It was a burglar in Hatton Garden. It was going to be high value, and so we decided straight away, yes, we'd take it, get down there, assess it, and then we'll develop it from there. You know, within a few hours, it became apparent that it was a really serious crime, and that it's definitely a job for us.
The scale of what the thieves had got away with made headlines around the world. The flying squad were in the spotlight.
We have to hit the ground running. A lot of these victims, it was clear early on, were going to be significantly financially affected by this. So straight away there is the pressure.
The vast majority of people who stored property in the vault were traders in London's jewellery quarter, with much of their wealth tied up in goods.
I have been through the door every single day, or certainly 3 or 4 times a week for 45 years. It was quite a big part of my pension that was sitting in there, or had been sitting in there, which was now gone.
The Hatton Garden investigation was a classic case of cops and robbers.
Within the first day, we'd already brought together a team of officers to trawl CCTV in the area.
They painstakingly built up a picture of how the heist happened. The gang were caught on CCTV arriving at around 7 p.m. in this white van. Then at 9:22 p.m, a mysterious red-haired man gained access to the building. To this day, it's not known exactly how he did it. Once inside, he opened the fire escape, letting the others with their builders' outfits and wheelie bins into the building. The gang then disabled the lift, allowing them to access the shaft with a clear drop straight down into the basement. It's thought the 2 fittest of the gang then scrambled down.
Come on, that's it.
They got through other security measures to let the rest of the gang in. And soon, all that was between them and the loot was the vault door and a concrete wall, 1/2 meter thick and reinforced with steel. To access the diamonds, they used a diamond, a specialist diamond-tipped high-powered coring drill designed to penetrate concrete and stone.
Come on, let's get it on the wall. Then let's get cracking.
They made a hole 25 centimetres by 45 centimetres in the wall, just big enough for a small person to squeeze through. But they faced yet another obstacle. The back of the safe deposit boxes were bolted to the ceiling and floor and were blocking the hole and their way in. The hydraulic ram they bought to shift them broke. After almost 11 hours, they gave up and left at around 8 a.m, empty-handed.
To walk away from that prize when you're so close, very, very difficult indeed. But by the same token, the longer they're in the vault, the longer they're actually on the premises, then the chances of getting caught is raised considerably.
But the gang broke one of the basic rules of the criminal world by returning the following night to the scene of the crime. Using a new hydraulic ram, they were able to dislodge the metal cabinets blocking the hole. They were finally in. The hole would have been a tight squeeze. It's thought only the 2 who'd scrambled down the lift shaft, including the red-haired man, actually entered the vault. Once inside, they forced open 73 safety deposit boxes, filling bags and even wheelie bins with jewels, gold, precious stones and cash. They loaded up their loot and hauled it up the stairs, leaving via the fire escape. This is the moment they made their getaway. with the incredible £14 million haul. The flying squad had the crooks in action, but who were they? Their big break in identifying them would come as a result of the thieves' critical decision to return to the crime scene that second time.
That gives us a breakthrough because it led the CCTV officers to identify that on the second night they'd arrived in a Mercedes earlier.
As well as the van, the gang also used this Mercedes. Detectives were able to trace it to 74-year-old John Kenny Collins.
John Collins has been convicted of robbery on 2 occasions. Second occasion, it was armed robbery on a jeweller's. He has got a significant criminal pedigree.
He recce'd Hatton Garden to check out the premises. He was also the all-important getaway driver.
Because John Collins was using his own vehicle, it was a Mercedes E200, very distinctive, and very few of them on the road. It had a black roof, black wheels, and so even the grainy CCTV that probably normally wouldn't be of a high evidential value identified, and we were able to track that car.
You've just got to wait until you get something that is concrete and tangible and you know is a good start point, which is what the Mercedes and Collins was, and then you commit your resources down that line.
The flying squad put Collins under surveillance. He quickly led them to other members of the gang. Covert officers captured him meeting with 76-year-old Brian Reeder.
He's been described as the governor, the master, the organiser. He's a career criminal. He would see himself as the top of the tree in this group.
Reeder was planning the heist as early as 2012, but didn't return to the vault on that second night. Detectives were watching as they met in cafes and pubs.
The group are coming together. It was now a patience game on our part, and that paid off when John Collins, Brian Reeder and Terence Perkins met.
67-year-old Terence Perkins was responsible for the drilling. He's also got form and served 22 years in prison.
Perkins and Collins were telling Brian Reeder, when they went back, how they were successful in the end.
Detectives soon pieced together who the other gang members were.
Daniel Jones is again an organised criminal. He's younger, fitter, and that's what he brings to the group.
It's believed he climbed down the lift shaft and squeezed through the hole into the vault. Carl Wood was also part of planning the heist and there on the first night, but he pulled out on the second day when he's thought to have bottled it. And then there's the red-haired man the gang referred to as Basil, a mysterious character. His true identity is still unknown. As detectives identified the gang members, they also planted electronic listening bugs on 2 of their cars, including Collins' Mercedes.
It is a tactic that is used in serious crime investigations and can be quite productive. And obviously it was very productive on this occasion.
We were able to obtain recordings of their conversations, and we know that they were quite excited about the fact that they'd got away with such a large-scale offence, and it was unlikely that the police would have any idea of what had taken place or who to look for, and they were quite comfortable in the fact that they were away scot-free.
The men couldn't help boasting, totally unaware the police were listening to every word.
The audio recordings of the conversation told us exactly how they'd done it, who they'd done it with, how they're going to sort out the property. So for us, obviously, it was a goldmine of evidence.
6 weeks after the heist, members of the gang met in a pub car park in North London to move some of the loot.
It'd be one thing to arrest the group together, but what we wanted was property.
This was the moment that 3 bags containing diamonds, watches and necklaces were shifted from a taxi into Collins' Mercedes.
The 3 bags that have been exchanged behind the pub contained at this point an estimated £2 to £4 million worth of diamonds and gold.
With the exchange done, Collins and Jones drove in their distinctive Mercedes to a nearby property, with the flying squad on their tail.
We had weeks of surveillance showing the principals meeting up. We had the audio recording saying what they'd done and how they were going to do it, and eventually we had some property coming out of the woodwork. So at that point, we've got sufficient there. There'd be no reason to delay the arrest any longer. So that was why we made a decision at that point to go in.
The police made their move. In coordinated raids with more than 200 officers, they hit 12 addresses in London and Kent.
They were surprised, obviously very disappointed. They would still have been, no doubt, actively in their minds trying to work out how they're going to minimise their criminal responsibility. It's not until they're interviewed and they obviously will walk through the evidence that we had against them that they realised how comprehensive the investigation had been against them and the amount of trouble that they were in at that point in time.
But they weren't saying much in police interviews.
Were you a driller?
No comment.
Were you the person that could deactivate the lift shafts?
No comment.
The alarm systems?
No comment.
Was it you that messed up?
No comment.
It was your role, wasn't it, to get through the hole?
No comment.
Jones and the three other ringleaders, Reeder, Collins and Perkins, saw the writing on the wall and confessed.
To have four who spent 3 years in the planning for this offence to plead before going to trial basically shows and is rewarding enough for us to say that we've done the right job and we're starting to do the right thing for the victims.
From his cell at Belmarsh Prison, Danny Jones offered to give up his stash of the loot, claiming he wanted to go straight. He said he'd hidden it at Edmonton Cemetery in North London. Police searched a grave, digging for around 2 hours, uncovering jewellery and precious stones. A week later, they returned, this time taking Jones from his cell. He led them to a different grave. He was unaware police had already discovered the first larger haul. The flying squad had recovered some of the stolen property, and they had their 4 ringleaders. Another 3 men had also been charged. They pleaded not guilty and went on trial. Last month, the jury delivered its verdict. Carl Wood and William Lincoln were both convicted for their roles in the burglary and for dealing with the haul. Another man, Hugh Doyle, was found guilty of helping the gang distribute the loot. The guilty men are now serving time. Well, all except one, that is. The mysterious red-haired man, Basil, or whatever his real name is, seems to have got away with it. For now. He's still out there somewhere, along with £10 million of missing loot.
Well, it really is an incredible story, but it's not quite over yet. The head of the flying squad, Detective Superintendent Craig Turner, is here with the latest on the elusive Basil. He is an intriguing character. I mean, he seemed to have got them in the first place. You must be closing in on him by now.
Well, the purpose of me here today is to appeal to members of the public. We're offering £20,000 for information that leads to the arrest and conviction of the person we call Basil. What we know about Basil is that obviously he allowed the group to enter into the deposit box area via the front door using a key. We think he's wearing a wig, yeah, and we're not too sure whether his name is in fact Basil. The group referred to him as Basil, but we don't think that's his true name. He's obviously walked into the Hatton Garden area. He was very, very elusive to CCTV, so therefore he could be local to the area. So we're appealing to members of the public that may have seen anything suspicious on the lead up to the Easter Bank Holiday weekend.
Because he really did take real sort of pains to disguise himself, didn't he?
He did. From the CCTV, he's carrying the case or bag on his shoulders, and I would have said he would have known where that CCTV was and would have known the actual area.
And they took £14 million worth of property. You've recovered about £4 million, but £10 million is still missing. And these are some of the items that you're interested in finding.
It is, and we're extremely victim-focused. We've restored £3.7 million worth of jewellery back to victims, and we're going to take our time to make sure that, obviously, those items of jewellery get back to the rightful owners. I would appeal to members of the public and also people that are involved in the jewellery industry, if they're ever offered items of jewellery in suspicious circumstances or bespoke items such as these that will be shown on the website, to contact the incident room.
Okay, thank you. And if you think you can help the flying squad bag their man, please do get in touch using the numbers on screen. Also, if you've been a victim of any crime, you may want to speak to victim support. They are on 08 08 16 89 111.
Time now to update you on some previous cases, and thanks to you we have some really fantastic results this month, starting with a horrific rape we featured in October's programme when a 21-year-old woman was attacked in the Toxteth area of Liverpool. While following the appeal of this man, Mebrutum Abra, was arrested in Birmingham last month, the 25-year-old was jailed for 10 years with another 5 years on licence for his appalling crime.
That initial moment of actually finding our man for the whole investigation team was an incredible experience, because in the Crimewatch reconstruction, the victim wanted to make sure that he didn't do this again. And we were able then to tell the victim that we'd actually found this offender, that we knew now that we could get him off the streets.
In March, we asked for your help in finding Victor Lakatos. Detectives wanted to question him after an 89-year-old man was attacked and robbed on his own driveway. At the time, we couldn't show the victim Mr. Butlin's injuries for legal reasons, but we can now reveal this shocking image of the elderly man who spent several days in intensive care. It beggars belief. Well, as a direct result of the programme, Victor Lakatos, who now looks like this, has been jailed for 18 years. The judge praised the work of Crimewatch and the police in bringing him to justice. Mr. Butlin has sadly since died, but his family wanted to thank the Crimewatch viewer who called in with Lakatos's whereabouts.
I just thank you. Just thank you. You made such a difference. People who ring in are you're doing a fab thing. Just keep doing a fab thing and helping however little you think you can help. Just ring in for whatever bit of information you've got.
Well, back in May 2013, we featured this man, John Archer Barnett. He's a convicted paedophile who'd been released but was wanted back in prison. One of his victims was watching the programme and contacted police for the very first time. As a result, Barnett was last month found guilty of 4 historic sexual offences on a teenage boy and jailed for 10 years.
Next, you may remember we showed you this chilling case back in May after a woman was raped at knife point in Lewisham in London. This footage shows the attacker following her shortly beforehand. During the ordeal, he demanded her bank card and PIN number and was caught on CCTV using a cash machine a short time later. Last month, this man, Blair Charles, who's 39, was jailed for 15 years after pleading guilty to 2 counts of rape, 2 counts of robbery and 1 count of theft.
You may remember we showed you this CCTV in October of a disabled pensioner being punched and robbed as he made his way home through Doncaster Town Centre. Well, thanks to you, this 34-year-old man, Alan Potts, was last month jailed for 3 years and 4 months for the vicious robbery.
In October, we asked for your help to find this man who launched a vicious attack on a train guard in Clapham in South London after being told to move his bike. Well, as a direct result of your calls, 24-year-old Mohammed Essad from Ladbroke Grove has been given a 12-month suspended sentence and ordered to pay compensation. The court heard he'd sent a vile, racist text after the attack, boasting he'd split someone's head open.
And finally, yet more proof, if it were ever needed, that you cannot outrun the law. Glenn Madden was on April's show, wanted for money laundering and drug dealing while he was spotted by police officers in Amsterdam. And his arrest was caught on camera, as you can see here. Madden was sent back to the UK and jailed for 5 years. It just goes to show, you can run, but you cannot hide.
Now, an update on some of the calls we've received tonight. The appeal we showed you into the murder of Marvin Cousin, well, we've had some fantastic calls in on this. Detectives are chasing up the information, including very, very important leads on that all-important car. Please do, though, keep the calls coming in if you know anything on that case. The first CCTV we showed you, the robbery where the man's moped was taken, several calls on that, excellent information and really good information coming through on Wanted Face number 1. Thank you.
Well, that's everything for now, but please remember to take a look at the Crimewatch website where you can find all of tonight's appeals. Our phone lines stay open until midnight tomorrow, and we'll be back with an update tonight at 11:15. We will, of course, also keep you up to date with the latest developments via Twitter. Do follow at BBC Crimewatch. Thank you so much for all of your calls so far. From everyone here, goodbye.